What's up, everyone? Today we are here with Cheryl Smith, who is a midwife, a doula, and an herbalist.
Mhm.
I've known you for, I don't know, a few years now because you were
Yeah.
here for like 2 years, weren't you? Or a year and
Yeah.
a half or so.
Yeah. Almost 2 years.
So, yeah. Well, I'm happy to have you. I'm glad you're,
Yeah. I'm happy to be here.
yeah, it's going to be good. All the time when we would stop, like see each other in the hallway, we'd end up chatting for so long all the time. And
Yep.
it was just always good conversation and everything. So, we were just talking about you just well, not just. When did you become a midwife?
Actually, really, just a few months ago was official.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. How long is the training for that?
Well, I started in 2021, and
Wow.
it's what 2026 now.
That's
So,
crazy.
and I guess it just depends on the person too, because the way I did it, it was more so self-paced.
Mhm.
The clinical part, like going to the births, doing prenatal visits and things. That's what kind of takes the longest, because you're waiting for somebody having a baby.
Right.
There could be a miscarriage, so then you can't count that birth. So a lot of
Mhm.
things happen, and so the timing is just never. There's never like an exact timing, but I say the average for people are about like 3 to 5 years.
Wow. That's I mean, that's I'm it's something that's needed. I mean,
Yeah,
like a midwife and the training for you to know what the heck you're doing, basically, because it's not
yeah.
something to take lightly, obviously. But well, something that I always with you was would be like, hey, we're gonna be doing this. Oh, and you're like, I'll be there, and then you're like, hey, someone had a baby. I gotta go, and
All the
I'm like,
time.
that it takes a special kind of person to do that kind of work. And before we get into that, I guess if, for anybody that's watching that doesn't know what a midwife is or what a doula was, because honestly, I didn't know what they were until you started with your office space
Mhm.
here, and I was like, what is a doula? And then I was like,
Yeah.
people actually use this. But then I was like looking into it and I was like, that is very so because they're women are in a very vulnerable space there in a very powerful space, and to have someone empowering them is important. So if you could kind of describe a little bit just what is a midwife, what's a doula, kind of is there a difference there? And
Yeah,
yeah.
so a doula is a non-medical professional versus a midwife is a medical professional.
So that's
So
where the medical training comes into
yes,
play. Okay.
yeah, a doula, as a doula, I wouldn't touch anybody medically, for liability reasons.
Hmm.
But also a doula, it's like a pregnant woman's assistant. You're supporting them throughout the journey. You're trying to educate them, prior to the birth, teaching them teaching them about their bodies in a way of understanding the physiological process of birth,
Hmm.
listening to their bodies, also learning a little bit about their bodies too. So you're going into labor, understanding what's happening, because that also improves outcomes. Um, and comfort measures, making sure they understand pain management techniques, whether or not they're doing medicine or not, giving them all of their options. And I think one of the biggest things too is just advocacy. Um, Whereas, you know, a midwife is like medical professional that's there, at the time of the birth. But the doula, you're pretty much there. The midwives are there most of the time too. But as a doula, you're really guiding them through this process, teaching them, supporting them. Out of hospital settings, in hospital settings, really advocating for them and just making sure that they understand their body, what's happening
Yeah.
in the process. Whereas a midwife, you're the medical professional. Most midwives are holistic. So you're still offering, those comfort measures, letting them know their pain management techniques, showing them the different positions and, birthing positions they can do. um, it's a continuity of care. So you're with that woman, from the time she tells you she's pregnant, she goes to care, and until the time that she's 6 weeks postpartum. So you have an intimate relationship with them, um, but you like their OB, but it's
Hmm.
just a little bit more of an intimate relationship, and it's strictly, like I said, medical.
And the midwife typically is there during the birth, though, right?
Yeah. So like when it's time, and that's what a doula's good too. They can kind of help you, guide you, and figuring out, okay, like it's time to call your medical team. And your
Mm,
medical team is your midwife and her birth assistant and whoever she's bringing along to the birth.
gotcha. Well, and so like with a midwife, uh, do they typically facilitate the birth like at someone's house or something, or do they also go to the hospital if someone wants to have it in like a traditional hospital setting? Because I know some people, and I'm gonna tell this story in just a second, but some people that I know have had like home births and they have their midwife and stuff, and I just didn't know how
Yeah.
that went.
Yeah, so midwives are typically, and there's different types of midwives. There's nurse midwives. Nurse midwives are in hospital settings, usually only. And they are going to be in hospital birth centers. And also there's regular, like standalone birth centers that aren't a part of a hospital. And then you have midwives who are maybe traditional midwives or CPMs, which are called certified professional midwives. They are strictly out of hospital. So it's
Okay.
the type of midwife that you're getting. And then most people, if you're getting a traditional midwife or a CPM, you're most likely doing a home birth. And that's strictly at home unless you need a medical transfer for an emergency. Um, and typically, your midwife would go to the hospital with you, just to kind of guide you. I mean, that person knows what's going on with you medically, why you're being transferred, so they're going to the hospital with you
Mm,
to support you until you've had your baby. Um, but that's the only reason why that midwife would be at the hospital.
gotcha. Okay. Well, and so and kind of the way I think about it is like to have that support and someone that knows all the process and everything, or if something is going kind of weird and they can be like, well, hold on, this is, and that advocating is a word that I hear from a lot of midwives is they are like, we're here to advocate for our client or I don't know, mother, whatever you want to call them, but it's they're there to help support and advocate. And I think it's important to have that. And I do have, like I mentioned, some people that have had at home or in home birth, like in a swimming pool or just um, in their home, and they have their midwife, and they're just like, I wouldn't have been able to get through this pregnancy without my midwife or without my doula. And it's one of those things where it's and I just actually had a thought. Are you also a like a end of life doula as well?
No,
Okay.
mm-mm.
There was someone I knew that was an end of life. I don't even know if that's a thing, but it was like
It
a
is.
end of
Yep.
life doula. But anyway, they were saying I couldn't have done it without my midwife or without my doula because of a lot of them did like the hypnobirth kind of stuff where they're just like really breathing and going through all of that. And I had a conversation with a somatic practitioner the other day here on the podcast, and we were just kind of talking about like the medical, how we kind of feel that the medical scenario kind of does a little bit too much sometimes or
Mm-hmm.
intervenes a little bit too much. And even I came up with like the question of my wife with my first son, everything was perfectly fine. And then she was induced, and then all of a sudden, an hour later, oxygen starts dropping and all kinds of like stuff starts happening, and we're like, well, did she need to be induced then, or could she have waited until she naturally had the baby?
Mm-hmm.
But what are your thoughts on just that area of things, whereas like a natural birth versus epidural and just like everything to do with the hospital setting?
Yeah. Well, I hope you have 3 hours, Josh, because
I know.
that's a very loaded question. But I'll say this without getting too passionate. Um, well, before I became a midwife, I've always wanted to be a midwife for a while before I became a doula. And the biggest thing that I learned as a doula, like separating myself from the medical part, was there was way too much intervention when
Mm,
women went to the hospital. And they weren't having the best outcomes because it was always like pregnancy is not one size fits all. But it felt like every time we went to the hospital, they were comparing every woman to one another, every situation to one another, instead of looking at the woman as a whole. Whereas I feel like in midwifery, you're looking at the woman as a whole, which
Mhm.
is why they have better outcomes too, because in midwifery, not only is it an intimate relationship that you're making, you have that continuity of care. They are in every prenatal visit, you know this person. You know what they're going through. And I'm not talking about just like physically or health wise, emotionally. Like what things could cause issues with the pregnancy in your emotion and in your personal life.
I
So
wanna say something to that really quick.
yeah.
That was a big issue that I had with our first one. Honestly, I don't remember much of it for my second one for some reason, but, like,
Yeah.
going to like, the OB or whatever, and just, like, the appointments were kinda just like a wham bam, thank you, ma'am, kinda, like,
Yes.
thing, and it was like, does that mean that our baby's okay? Or because they're just like, "Yeah, you're good, go ahead." And it's like, ultrasound, yeah, everything's good, and then go ahead. And it's like, there wasn't a lot of support there. It was kind of like, hey, we looked at you real quick, you look good, you're good to go. So I 100% support the like emotional side of it and just
Yeah.
getting to know them on a more personal level, not just the you're good, see you later kind of thing.
Yeah, an average prenatal visit, depending on the midwife and the relationship and what the client needs, could be like an hour long.
Mm,
So you went from 15 minutes to an hour long appointment. So you're really getting everything. And we're getting vitals, checking baby, listening to mom, offering nutritional support, all of these things in one visit. And and also preparing the mom for the birth too, because in a 15-minute appointment, you're doing all these things. Women still leave with questions, which is why
mm,
doulas are important because a woman could leave an appointment and go meet with her doula and say, okay, the baby's fine, but I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to do. I don't
mm,
know this is what they told me. I didn't have enough time to, get my questions answered. So sometimes doulas play that role, and we don't offer medical advice, but we do offer education. So you can make your own decisions, but um, just making sure that it's just equipped.
yeah, I guess that's a
That's
good
the
way to
biggest
put it.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so when you get to a point in your pregnancy where they're talking about inductions, um, I always tell my clients, get all of the information as to why you need to be induced.
Mhm.
Get all of the information. Especially as a doula, I wasn't trying to get involved with the medical part. But if they're telling me something and it made no sense, I'm like, ask questions. Ask this question. Figure out why they're having you be induced. Because inductions can be good, and they also could be they could cause a domino effect where at the end of it it could be a c-section, or issues can come along because your body probably wasn't ready to have a baby yet.
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of hospitals are inducing first time moms, in 40 weeks, 40 weeks, and then sometimes a mother is not ready, especially a first time mom. Your body's, processes slower.
Mhm.
um
Is there like a certain time frame where like you being who you are a little bit more on the holistic side and everything, also just midwife versus, whatever, like doctor, nurse, and is is there a certain amount of time where you're like, all right, we probably should get induced, or is it like let's just let it ride out until it's time?
for me it'd be situational.
Mm,
But I would say if you know you're looking at vitals. After if a woman goes to 42 weeks, you're monitoring baby almost every day.
mm,
And at that point, especially as a newer midwife, I'm probably gonna like do some co-care, like have you well, not even that, because most hospitals won't let you go to 42 weeks.
right.
So at that point, I would say it's for me
Mm,
personally, let's talk about inducing you, and just looking at the circumstances as a whole.
yeah.
um or like if the blood pressure's too high, or we're having issues with the baby or it, like I said, situational. So I'm looking at
Yeah.
all the pieces to make sure that we're both making the best decision for mom, that if an induction is necessary, it's absolutely necessary.
Right. Instead of just saying, "Oh, it's been 40 weeks, let's go," kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yes. And as a
Yeah.
doula, I would do natural inducing methods with my clients. That wasn't necessarily medical, but we would do like different techniques to help naturally
Uh,
induce.
I
It's,
heard spearmint could induce you. Is there any truth to that? Do you know?
no, not
Yeah. But
really.
I was doing it. I had a diffuser one time in my house. My wife is like, "You gotta turn that off." And I was like, "Why?" And she was like, "Because I heard that can send you
That's
into labor."
hilarious.
And I was like,
That's hilarious.
"Never heard of that
Yeah,
before."
but I mean, No, not really. I put spearmint in my prenatal vitamins, so it's safe.
Mm.
Doesn't induce, but there's herbs that help tone the uterus, so when it's time to have a baby, your body's prepared. But
What's the reason, if you know, what is the reason that, I guess that's situational as well, but kind of like what are some of the reasons why a baby is, I guess, what is the risk of having a baby hanging out and not coming out at 40 weeks or at 42 weeks or whatever? Is it that they're getting so crammed in there because they're big? Or is there a thought of like if we let them go too long, something else is going to happen? Do you know the answer to that?
yes and no. I think like after 42 weeks, this is just a whole lot of different studies.
I guess that's, yeah,
And
studies.
so a lot of this is based off the woman. I know there's different cultures, different places where they'll allow you to go over 42 weeks.
Hmm.
I know like for legal reasons, um, you know, 42 over 42 weeks can be illegal in certain places. You would have to be induced. So it would,
It's kind of crazy in a way that like, well, hey, we're
yeah.
telling you you can't. You're like, that's crazy, but
Yeah,
yeah.
so and it can, depending on, like I said, situation, depending on the person and what's going on, there could be other factors
Hmm.
as to why the baby isn't, your body isn't going to labor. So you're looking at everything. Like, well, you're going, we're at 41 weeks and 4 days, and there's no baby. Let's see, we can get you to do some more movement or see what's going on. I'm
Yeah.
asking questions like, are you stressed? Is there something going on at home? Because sometimes a woman's mental capacity could keep her from laboring too.
Oh, because maybe because she's like tensed up a little bit, or
Yeah, so
just
you're, so
hormonal.
it's like your body can go into flight or fight mode, and um, there was this really cool, and I use it from my childbirth education classes. But when a rabbit goes into labor and they give live birth, when they go into labor, if they fear there's an environment, if their environment's like, scary or like a fox is coming after them, they're going to hide and run, but they stop laboring because their
Mm,
body is in this flight mode where it needs to find safety. Or all mammals do that. So as humans, we do that too. And so, but your brain doesn't know the difference between you running from a predator versus you're just, scared and or not scared, I'm sorry, versus you just being stressed out or not
right.
feeling safe in your environment, which is why it's a whole different story in itself, or why women are have traumatic experiences in the hospital because they may not feel safe in there.
Ah,
That space may not feel safe. And when I say safe, it just means they can't advocate for themselves. They're feeling like they're forced to do something they don't want to do. So their body is maybe stalling labor or something.
right.
'Cause again,
Well,
your
and
brain
even
doesn't know the difference.
sometimes, like for myself, like even going into a hospital room, I'm like, oh God, I don't feel,
It's not the
I'm
most
not feeling too
comfortable.
safe in here. It's
Yeah.
so that, and that makes sense. And I feel like there's so much of like so much pushiness when it comes to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And like especially well, and this is after birth, but like with the vaccine stuff, and you can or can't get in this totally fine if you don't want
I would
to,
love to get.
but
I can get
okay.
into it.
Well, and they're like, you know, they ask, it was kind of a weird because like for me being the spiritual person that I am, I try to be holistic and stuff, but like I live on that edge where it's like, what if? Like, what if they need that vaccine? And which that's what the pharmaceutical industry wants to have in your head, right? But it's
Mm-hmm.
like, and I think there's a place for some vaccines possibly, but like they it was kind of a red flag because they were like, are you okay if we give him this vaccine? And I'm thinking like he just came out, like,
Right.
and they're like, and I'm like, yeah, that or me and my wife talked about it and we are like, yeah, that's fine. And then they were like, so you're sure we can give it? And I'm like, hold on, is there a reason why we shouldn't give it? And they
Yeah.
were like, no, no, we just want to make sure that you're good. And I was like, yeah, go ahead, like let's do it because I thought that was the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then we take him to his whatever follow-up doctor appointment, and they're like, all right, we have these like three vaccines or whatever it was. We have an oral that has two vaccines in it, and then a shot that has another, and then another. And I was like, No, like,
Yeah.
we're not I said, "If we're doing any of this, we're at least spreading this stuff out, like, we're not dosing them up right this second."
Right.
So, we did opt to space them out, and that's what we've done with both of our children. Sucks that I guess I don't have the nerve to not do it because I'm afraid of, like, what if this
Mhm.
disease comes around, whatever, but at the end of the day, I think it's absolutely insane and absurd how many vaccines they have now for children. What are your thoughts on it?
I completely agree.
Yeah, right.
And I know
It's
it may
crazy.
sound controversial for me as a midwife to not be okay with vaccines, but um if somebody wants vaccines in my practice isn't for them. But
Hmm.
um I've seen more harm than good with those things. And like you said, there's a time and a place for different pharmaceutical medicines. But when a baby's so fresh, freshly born, um, and I'll say this: when I was doing lots of research because I was already against vaccines, but I needed to have the information to back me up because
Yes.
I couldn't. My clients would ask me like, "We don't want to do this, but we're scared to not do it." Um, so I would say, look, I'm not going to tell you whether or not you should get a vaccine or not, but here is some information for you.
That's the way to go right
Yeah,
there.
here's the information for you, um, and you decipher for yourself. But I will say, I've worked with hundreds of clients. I've worked with over
Wow.
200 families, and over 100 of those families didn't vaccinate their children. And I keep in touch with a lot of them. Children are fine; they're doing just fine. And um, but again, that was their choice. They like I said, gave them the information and knowledge, and I was, I stood 10 toes behind them in the hospital room where they're, because you have a right, it's your child. You have a
Hmm.
right what you do with your child. So just standing behind them, whether or not they wanted to get any kind of vaccine or anything. But um, I encourage people to like ask questions, talk to other families who haven't had their children vaccinated. Um, and I mean babies. We're talking about babies. I'm gonna stick in my scope of practice.
Right.
But um, I encourage them to talk to them and get some information because a lot of the times it's always the what if because you don't
Hmm.
know, but it's like all of these examples, hundreds of like thousands of examples of children who didn't end up being fine.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's the whole thing is
yeah,
like, then there's always a rebuttal of like, oh, well, that, could have been because of this, or they could have already
there's
had
always gonna
this.
be a rebuttal.
And then there's the ultimate rebuttal of, well, there's going to be some, but these vaccines save lives. And it's like,
Hmm.
so then what do you do with that? But I think if there was, well, and we've seen, well, I'm sure you have, you said you did research. I've seen many examples. I don't know the name of the guy, but a guy that had his own practice and he ended up doing a study on the kids that were vaccinated versus weren't vaccinated in his clinic. And I mean, it was a lot of patients that he had. And it was absolutely mind blowing on how the kids that were not vaccinated, they were never sick. There was
Hmm.
0% autism. There was like 0% ADHD. It was like mind blowing. Whereas the other ones were, I don't know the percentage, but it was a good percentage.
Yeah.
And when you see it, and then that guy got his license taken away, like
Hmm.
by the board or whatever it is, and it's just that's insane to me that and it all comes down to money, I would imagine, with the pharmaceutical companies, but it's just insane to me that people do studies like that, have the info out there, and then we can see that,
Hmm.
but then we're being told no, that's wrong, and we need to, I don't know, not worry about it. Basically,
Yeah.
it's insane.
There's no money in making sure that people stay healthy
That's very
from
true.
all walks of life, from all ages. There's just no money in that. So you're messing with a $1 billion industry, and real life examples, real life facts, examples like that are going to destroy those industries.
Mhm.
So those people have to be kind of. It's like when you see somebody get their license taken away for exposing the truth, it scares others. So then nobody's looking
Right.
into it. Nobody cares to. risk getting their license taken away.
Mhm.
Or, like Barbara O'Neill, like they, arrested her in her country because of all of the information she was spreading about, a new way to look at nutrition, a new way
Mhm.
to heal, a guaranteed way to heal. These people were pretty much made to be examples to the
Yeah.
rest of those who are holistic practitioners. Like, you go out here, you're spreading this word, this knowledge, then you're going to be punished for it.
That is insane. And one of the scariest parts is like when you go into a doctor's appointment, and I'm actually speaking about myself now, like going into the doctor's appointment, and I'm like, they're talking to me about vaccine, or they're talking about different things, and I'm just like, they are literally just like going off of a script, it looks like, and
Yeah,
they all say the same thing. So I don't know. Well, I'm glad we agree on that.
yeah. I mean, I had a client. She called me right after the appointment. She asked the doctor, like, okay, well, you're saying get this vaccine for my baby, get this vaccine. So what's the ingredients?
Mm,
And they're like, what? I'm like, what's the ingredients? They didn't know, but they were enforcing her to get something they had no idea about. I would never do that.
that's
Personally,
crazy.
I wouldn't recommend drinking this water to you. Say this water is beneficial to you. It's amazing. It does so many weird things. And you're like, well, why? Like, what's in it? And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
actually, I don't know what's in it, but I definitely recommend you take that. You have to. It's
Yeah.
a requirement, but I don't know what's in it. That to me feels like a liability.
That's just insane.
It's a liability if you look at it, but because it's a vaccine, it's not a liability.
Alright. Well, and that actually brought up a memory. I had my, I think it was my oldest. He was in the doctor's office, and they were like, he needs. I don't know the vaccines. He needed two of them though, and one was a live virus, and the other one was whatever not a live virus is. And I was like, I asked him a question about it basically, and it wasn't like ingredients, but it was like, I forget the exact question, but I asked it, and the nurse was like, um, yeah, I mean I mean basically it does, and I was like, hold on, like you don't even know. I was like, can you get an answer on that? She was like, well, let me ask real quick. She went out and asked, and then I heard them talking, and they were kind of chatting about it, and I was like, this is insane. So anyway, I chose to get him the not live virus because it couldn't affect him, or it couldn't like make him sick or make him feel bad or whatever, because we were going on like vacation or something like that.
Mm-mm.
But they wanted to give them both at the same time, and I was like, we're going to space these out or whatever. But I don't know. It is very crazy that they don't know a lot about it. My doctor was just pressing me about the dang tetanus shot, and I was like, I mean, I don't. She's like, well, if you get tetanus, you're dead. And I was like, how many cases of tetanus like are there where people just die? And she was like, well, not a lot because they all have the vaccine. And I'm like, right. So I still haven't got it, but still, there's the what if.
It's
Like,
always that,
what
yeah.
if I get tetanus and die at this point from whatever the heck, a rusty nail or whatever?
It's
Uh,
like if I get tetanus and die, it may have just been my time
right.
because
I know, seriously. Well, and something I wanted, kind of circling back, because we obviously went down that rabbit hole,
yeah,
which I love to do because it's just insane. Um, with like you having to pick up and go, I wanted to touch on this. Like you just like, hey, I'm hanging out, boom, now there's someone's in labor, I have to go and do something. How does that affect you? I mean, like, are there times where you're like, what in the hell am I doing in this industry? Or are you I can imagine because it's like
yeah.
you have plans and then boom, someone's pregnant. But I guess it's really rewarding though.
It's rewarding. Sometimes you get into a space where, especially when I was in midwifery schooling,
Mm-hmm.
trying to finish, and then I was a very busy doula too. So I mean, I almost didn't plan anything. I was always, missing church. I was
Mm-hmm.
always, I mean, I didn't have much of a social life, because I remember going out to dinner with a friend, and I ended up having to. We pulled up to the place, and I got a call from a client. She's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Yeah, I'm 7 centimeters, and sorry I didn't call earlier,
I
but."
say 7 centimeters. You're
She's
about to
super
go,
close. So I'm
man.
like, oh
That's
my gosh, I'm sorry, but I actually have to go. And I didn't
Mhm.
deal with that a lot. I always made sure my clients told me like at the start, let me know when you're at
Right.
the start of labor, so I can plan my day. But some
I guess that
things
does give you a little bit of lead time there.
it
Yeah.
does, but still, you just never know. You really
Right.
never know. Some things could happen where it could be an emergency,
Mhm.
and you're stopping what you're doing. I may have a whole shift of work, and then somebody goes into labor, and they might have a fast labor where the work day for me ends at 5, and I
Mhm.
go home, maybe have some dinner, go to sleep, and then I'm back on the road around like 9 or 10.
Mhm.
Maybe to get a nap in or something like that. It was
Yeah.
very hard. It was very hard. It was doing a lot of that.
Yeah. So with being a midwife now, has that shifted where you're not on call as much like that, or is it the same thing pretty much?
Well, after I finished the schooling part, I went on hiatus.
Mm.
Because I still have to take a board exam.
Ah, okay.
And that allows me to be able to work in any state.
That's
And
awesome.
also apply for licensing in any state. So I took a hiatus to be able to like study for that. Kind of, I didn't want to get burnt out because
Mhm.
I have been on call for like 6 years, going on seven
Right.
years, just being on actually 7 years. March at the end of March, on call constantly. So I just wanted a
That's a lot.
hiatus because I was starting to get burnt out, and it was just like, is this for
That's
me? And
7 years, and I'm just starting to get burnt out. I would have been burnt out after
well,
the
because it's
first.
like I have moments where I'm like on a high. I love it. When you're
Mhm.
watching somebody be born, something be born, like it's a beautiful occasion when you're able to support somebody through that. Like you've seen like the moment of them doubting to the moment they're holding their baby. Like that's so
Yes.
rewarding. You can't. For me, there's nothing in my life that's been like that. So I get out of it once this happens.
Mhm.
But I had times where I'm like, this is too much.
Yeah.
This is too much. But I love what I do. It's my complete full purpose. So for me, I was like, let me just take this time off because once I get into midwifery, it's gonna be a full swing.
Mhm.
And yeah. So what I would say it's probably gonna be a little bit better because
Right.
doulas, you're at a birth for like 12 hours.
Mhm.
Like you're there the whole time almost. With midwives, you're coming closer to when the baby does come.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'll. It's being a doula is more exhausting, I would say.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And kind of just last thing I want to touch on with that, because it's a question that I have before I want to kind of talk about the herbalism kind of
Mhm.
stuff with like your intertwined with your midwife stuff before we go
Sure.
full on herbalism. Uh, the toll that it takes on you physically and mentally of like being on call and stuff, but then like what about like what do you do to help yourself handle when something doesn't go as planned in the birthing room or with the pregnancy and stuff? Because I can imagine that would be really hard to deal with. At least for me it would suck. But what do you do to kind of deal with that?
So if it's so, thank God I've only had a few occasions where you know I've seen stillborns.
Yeah,
And so that does
that's
affect you.
everybody's fear. It's like
Yeah.
everything's good and then what the hell happened kind of thing.
Yeah, and the call is no better, especially like you see it through the pregnancy
Mhm.
through. You're listening to the baby, you're feeling the baby with that client, and it's not the same feeling as being the mother, but it does affect you a little bit, and I I didn't really know how to handle it really. Like
Right.
I would just go
I don't think
home,
anybody would, yeah.
you keep a straight, good face, and then you go home and cry about it, cry in the
Right.
shower about it. I did reach out to like my church, like the leadership of my church, like my deacon and all, and just kind of like get just some words of encouragement and some understanding, and they've done a great job at explaining, grief, mourning, and that you guys allow me to see certain things so I can handle them,
Mhm.
and it's just it helps. Um,
It's good that you have that support there
yeah, yeah,
because that's important.
and just making sure I don't take everything so personally,
Mhm.
too hard, because I was doing that too. Even when the client had a miscarriage, just thinking like, what could I have? How could I have helped this person more?
Mhm.
I remember at a client who um she came to me late in practice. She was like 36. No, she was like 35 weeks because she lost her baby at 36 weeks.
Mm.
And she had all these questions. She really, really, like, she wanted to know about, she was doesn't know, she was first time mom, very young girl, and she didn't know very much.
Mhm.
Um, so she didn't know about kick counts. So she didn't know, like, was her when her baby wasn't kicking, she didn't know that was a
Okay.
problem. So I kept beating myself up about that. Like, if I had just sat her down immediately when I got into practice and just went over all of the things that she should know, could she have gotten to the hospital quicker? Could she have, you know, like caught on to this quicker? And you just think like, what could you have done to make the situation better? And it's like, no, that's not on you.
Right.
You can't take everything to heart.
Well,
And
and I think everything is in divine order
yeah,
anyway. So I mean, like I think whatever was meant to happen in those moments was meant to happen, and we have to
exactly.
believe that with the good and the bad, unfortunately. And
And
yeah.
I'm glad you said that because and I'm careful with my words, but I like to tell people that out of a lot of miscarriages that I've seen, and a lot of deaths that I've seen, people don't understand at the time God always has a purpose, a plan,
Hmm.
and like there's been a few pregnancies that were miscarriages where if they had went full term, it probably would have ended up where it was either mom or baby,
Uh,
you know, and you don't know that until
that's a rough one
that's
too. It's
rough and
yeah.
it's hard to accept, but you know, your body is always going to choose you
Hmm.
a lot of the time. So that baby has to be miscarried probably because if it went to term, it would have affected you
That's a way to
in the
look at
way
it.
that
Yeah.
wasn't so great. So a lot of
Hmm.
things are just, but that's another thing in my practice too. If I can't have that conversation with you, it's kind of hard for me to really tell you like what's going on because I believe in a lot of things are God's purpose, God's plan.
Hmm.
And if I can't explain that to you, it's really hard for me to really explain it, what's going on at all.
So that is really, I can imagine that would be, I don't know, a little bit difficult because even
Mm-hmm.
in my line of work, sitting down with someone and they're telling me all these like terrible things that's happening, and I can't just say, well, God wants it to be that way, and that's the way it's
Right.
supposed to happen, and,
No,
and it's
yeah,
because
you
it's
can't.
like they're like, what? So but that's what I genuinely believe. I think that it's God's will or God. I mean, the universe, God, creation is going to work the way that it is working, and all things have a reason, even if we don't see the reason, even if
Mm-hmm.
the things happening seem very brutal or not fair or whatever. It just, I think that there is a reason for it, and and then you see many people with stories where they're like, that happening to me, no matter if it is birth or any other thing,
Mm-hmm.
really changed my life and helped propel me to where I'm at right now, helping other people or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you can, well, yeah, you can look at it on like a soul level, and it's like, sometimes souls agree to have different experiences and stuff, and it's just, I don't know. I think that there's a lot to it there.
Yeah. And I think that's what helped that has helped me. Because I'm like, well, if this thing happened, we can't control the outcomes of everything. So I try to look at the full picture before I put my emotions in it.
Yeah.
But you don't become emotionless. It's still, even when a baby's born and it took them a while to breathe, that's still be traumatic sometimes too. So
Mm.
you're like, eh, you just gotta
It
take care
took
of yourself.
it took my first, like, I don't know, realistically probably like 2 to 3 seconds before he started breathing.
And I'm sure that was
Oh my God, it felt like
scary.
10 minutes. I was just like, because his oxygen was going low, and
Mm-hmm.
we're like, we didn't know how serious things were because we, uh, that was like obviously our first kid, but like he came out, had the umbilical cord around his neck. The
Mm-hmm.
doctor uh nonchalantly just kind of takes it off like it was okay, but he was a little bit purple as well. And I'm like, this doesn't look good. And then she's kind of like pressing on his heart or his chest a little bit and kind of like rubbing her fist around or whatever. And I'm like, and then we start seeing breath. He didn't cry though. So I know, not know, I always heard that was like not a great sign if they're not crying or whatever, but he made it through. Everything was fine. But they took him, and immediately when he was born, it was kind of like, oh, there he is. And then they took him over to the table, and then there was a NICU nurse there that started checking him out. And I was like, are you always, or like, why do we have a NICU nurse here? And they were like, oh, it's procedure with all births and everything. And we're like, oh, okay. And then she checked him out, said everything was good, and then I think they like gave him a shot or something, who knows? But and then they put him back over, and then he started trying to latch and all that stuff for food. But then I had my second, and there was no NICU nurse there, and he got to stay with my wife for much, much longer this time. And it was the same doctor, same hospital that delivered him. So it was like the same everything except for the NICU nurse wasn't there, and they didn't take him away immediately and look at things. So I think there was something that they didn't even tell us that
Oh,
they
there was
were
100%.
suspecting was going on there. And I'm like, how close were we to not even having a baby in that moment? It's like, oh, it's a scary thing to think about, but
Yeah, that's what I think. And being on the medical provider side, I know some things can be hard, but it's communication is important.
mm,
Because especially in the hospital setting, you got all these different nurses and doctors coming in for an emergency, and the parents don't even know what the emergency is or what's going
right.
on. And that's not, and I guess some people don't know how to communicate in an emergency situation, but we need to start learning how to communicate in an emergency situation because it can lead to trauma.
Mm,
Um, the next round because they're like, all this stuff happened to me. I still don't know why it happened. They
yeah.
probably saw dips in the heart rate well before baby was born because of the cord.
Mhm.
And so they thought a NICU nurse should be in the room to check baby when baby was born. But they didn't tell
Right.
you that because they're just saying they don't want you to freak out, I guess, by saying, oh, yeah, we always have a NICU nurse in here. But they,
Yeah.
they probably saw some things they didn't see or they didn't, mention to you.
And then I think, like, is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I mean, because it could have made my wife start panicking and the birthday. I mean, I don't know. He was born so quick, and they kind of, I think, mentioned at the end that it was really good that he was born quick.
Hmm.
I mean, she pushed for like, I think it was 11 minutes or just something
I
like
didn't
that.
know
And
that.
it was just like, bloop, there he is. And
This was your first?
our first, and then our
Nice.
second was like pretty much the same. Like it was like he came right out, and it was so it was really good and just a great experience all in all. But
Hmm.
still, like just that whole thing is scary.
And you touched on something. You said that you didn't know if it was necessary because she may have freaked out. But that's why preparation beforehand is important. I make sure to tell my clients this could happen, this could happen. Let's be prepared for these things because you go into the room not prepared, you can get freaked out.
Hmm.
But if you're doing the preparation and understanding, okay, this is what this means. They may have a nurse in here for this reason. There's if a cord gets wrapped around, this is what happens. But the team is equipped to be able to, fix that quickly.
All right.
This is what they do. They rub the back of the chest really hard to get the baby to help activate those lungs and get that fluid out
Hmm.
of the lungs. Like these are the things that they're doing, so that when you're seeing it happening in real time, you're not trying to figure out. You're freaked out.
That's
So
a good way to
preparation is
put it.
important.
Hmm.
I let them know everything because it helps that woman of being freaked out by something that's very normal because you could be in a
Right.
home birth and that same thing may happen. Now we don't have a bunch of nurses coming in and doctors coming in, but if you see your baby being born, they're purple, and you're trying to like you see somebody rubbing their back really hard or trying to resuscitate them, and you just learning like, okay, this is why this is happening. But my team is equipped to be able to help me. It does better for lessening that trauma
I
than not.
agree. Yeah, I think that would have been nice to know what was actually going
Yeah.
on. And
I'm not saying that you wouldn't have been freaked out still, but it would have helped
uh,
to know, like, well, these people are in here to help
yeah.
the situation versus it felt like a secret.
And I'm also not dumb. So like I knew
Yeah.
something was going on. So it's like I did have those suspicions, but then it's also like no one said anything. And it's
Yeah.
so yeah, because I was worried regardless. I was worried in general anyway, because that's just
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, everything's been great. I hope everything continues to be great, but what if it
Yeah.
doesn't? And then I'm not even gonna let myself go down that route, just that kind of stuff. But then you see that nurse and then you see him do, and I'm like, all right, something's not good here. Then they spoke
Yeah.
about C-section because she wasn't getting dilated or
Mm.
anything, and then she went from like nothing to like everything like really quick, and they're like, well, it's time to have the baby now. So
Yeah. And that happens too. That
yeah,
happens too.
it was
Labor is so
crazy.
unexpected.
It
Birth is so
is.
unexpected.
Our second, she went in to like get checked by the OB, and she was like, "No, you're still good." And then she was like, "All right." And then she was like, She's like, "Well, actually, your water just broke, so we're
I
gonna."
respect it.
And then we ended up doing that. So, question for you: do you use like because you're an herbalist as well, and I don't know exactly how to explain an herbalist besides you use um, organic or natural stuff to help people with different things. If you can, kind of just let everybody know what a herbalist is, and then I'm going to ask you, do you use that in like with your pregnant mothers and stuff, and how do you use it?
Yeah. So a herbalist is just someone that literally uses medicinal plants.
Mhm.
Plants. You're making teas out of them. You're making salves, balms, poultices. Like you're actively using herbs for medicinal purposes. It's just as simple as that. Anybody could be. I don't say anybody could be a herbalist, but most people are herbalists and don't even know it. You know, they're
Mhm.
just probably something instilled in them to use herbs, plants, and things for medicinal purposes. Um, and there's people who are now like clinical herbalists, or the term is now where when you're trying to find an herbalist, you're trying to find someone that is educated and knowledgeable enough to identify a plant, identify the plant and what medicinal properties that plant has and how it can benefit somebody
Mm.
totally. Um, and yes, I do use it for my practice, and it's my go to. Now, I'm well versed in pharmaceutical medicine. So if it's an emergency and we need a quick fix, like something quick, we're looking at pharmaceutical
Mhm.
medications. But if it's something where it's not, if it's like a pregnancy symptom, something simple fix, um, I'm recommending an herb for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you recommend herbs? Like, do you give herbs for after? I know you don't deal with them much or at all after they've birthed the child
Yeah,
or
you actually
whatever, but
do. You,
oh,
you
do
deal with
you?
something. Yeah.
Do you for like hormones and stuff and like rebalancing everything? Do you have anything that you give for that, or
Hmm.
what's your process with that?
Yes. So, even if and I incorporate in my practice, or even if they want a client of mine, um, I make postpartum recovery supplements, and most postpartum recovery supplements will include things to help rebuild those hormones, rebuild those missing vitamins that were taken from them, especially
Mm,
during that birth, iron rebuilding. Um, so herbs that just strengthen those things too, um, and but hormones and iron are the most important. Uh,
yeah.
and so you're looking at pretty much all of those things, depending on what they need. It may
Right.
not even be just from pregnancy related. It could just be they need herbs for breastfeeding. If the
Hmm.
milk supply is low, do we have a herb for that? Um, or they're sick and
Right.
they don't know, because some herbs you can't take when you're breastfeeding because it may slow the milk process, or the baby is still getting whatever herb you're taking, the baby's getting that too. So
Hmm.
making sure that that herb is safe for baby as well, so they're consulting with me about what herbs they can take in general, whether it's for immunity, if they're sick. It really just depends.
Yeah. It's really something I just thought about. My wife, when she was breastfeeding, she breastfed both of them. I don't know which one it was that she used this on, or maybe both, but like those body armor drinks. There was one of the body armor drinks that when
Hmm.
she drank that, her supply went up like so much, and like that's what she was using for
A lot
her.
of moms use a lot of moms use the body armor.
Do they really?
Yeah.
That's probably where she saw it then, online
Yeah,
somewhere.
it was really huge to drink body armor for breast milk
Mm,
supply. I always tell women electrolytes and protein. That's the
mm,
biggest thing when it comes to breastfeeding is electrolytes and protein.
really?
They're like losing 500 to 1,000 calories when they're pumping and they're breastfeeding a lot of the
Wow.
times.
In just
So
one session or
yeah, one session,
holy
especially pumping.
moly.
Pumping really can be really intense, not necessarily just breastfeeding.
The first one
That
was
takes a lot of energy.
breastfeed, like on the breast, and then the second one was pumping because she didn't want him to get like attached to her.
Mm.
Again, like the other, because it was like he was feeding every like 30 minutes all day and all night, and like just But
cluster
we
feeding,
don't
yeah.
think he was actually eating half the time. We
He was
think he was
using her
doing
as
it
a
for, like,
pacifier.
comfort. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's insane. I didn't know that they lost
It's a
that
lot.
much.
Yeah, and they're still eating for two. So,
Yeah.
protein, electrolytes are huge. Healthy fats are huge for moms who are breastfeeding.
I never looked at it as they're still eating for 2, which
Mhm.
obviously they are, and,
Yep.
what are your thoughts on breastfeeding really quick? Because I talked to someone else about this, and there was a picture that I saw, and it was like a baby on the breast, but like it was like a motion picture, and all this like energy was coming into the baby and transferring to the baby. Do you think that breastfeeding is like I guess let me ask it like this. Do you feel like when a woman's breastfeeding, do you feel like it's um, like connecting them to that baby in a way that a bottle can't? And again, or not again, but I want to say there's no judgment between someone who has to or uses formula or pumps and uses the bottle or breastfeeds. But do you feel like there's more of a bond there or something that I might be missing that happens there?
No, I think breastfeeding is super, super, super spiritual,
I agree.
um, and when a baby breastfeeds from their mother, that that milk is supposed to benefit that baby specifically. So when that baby is latched to the mom, if they're sick, that milk is providing them antibodies. So we're talking about vaccines for babies, but the breast milk actually provides the antibodies for the baby. All right.
Hmm.
So if they're sick, it provides some specific antibodies. If a baby has a deficiency, that breast milk is supposed to provide. But that's why it's important for the mom to eat a certain way too, because then you're supplying that to your baby versus it just being taken away from you.
Right.
That's a whole different topic, but everything that baby needs is coming from the milk, and it's a great way for the mother to bond with the baby too.
Hmm.
Um, and full disclaimer, the women who do have to formula feed, there's different ways for you to be able to bond with your baby as well. And there's if you can breastfeed, you should. If you can't breastfeed, then we'll find ways to help you bond with your baby. And it may not have been your fault, the reason
Hmm.
why you can't breastfeed. But if you can, I think it's a good reason to do it.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and I know it's not easy either. I mean,
it's not
there's
easy, especially with working moms. The society has been built so for things like this where women can't properly bond with their babies. It's hard for women to produce milk because of their environment. It's hard, or the food that's I mean our food is just absolutely ridiculous.
I agree.
It's bioengineered, synthetic, so you're not really getting all of what you need to get. Or if a
Hmm.
woman lives in a food desert, there's a lot of different reasons why some women probably aren't able to breastfeed.
Hmm.
So, I do feel for them. Um, but I think that if you are capable, and you've got the milk supply and the time, you should. It's
Yeah,
been really beneficial to the baby.
I agree. Well, and after watching my wife go through however long, I mean, she breastfed her first child for, I think it was like a year and a half or something. I don't know, but 2 years maybe. But I mean, it was just so stressful for her. But props to her for sticking with it,
Hmm.
and then like the rawness or the things.
So many things that come up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's like now I talk to women and some people are like, I tried to breastfeed but I couldn't, and it's like I don't blame you. I mean, like I agree. I think if you can, you should, and I think it's so much more beneficial for the baby. But I don't blame them one bit because it is so hard
Hmm.
on them as well. And then my wife told me what you were just saying about like how the baby takes what it needs and your body produces like an antibody for it or whatever it needs. And that's just so insane. And it
Yeah.
just also attests to how amazing the human body are, specifically women's bodies. Like it
Hmm.
is just, I don't know, so crazy to
Yeah.
think that that's what we're doing. Well, and so moving a little bit into the herbalism stuff, I remember when we were roommates here for a while, like not roommates, but neighbors,
Yeah.
um, I would hear you grinding up your herbs and spices or whatever you're doing over there. And I just thought that was so cool. And there was a few times where I would like walk past your room and your door would be open and I would kind of glance in there, see if you're in there, and I would see your setup and just I
Mhm.
don't know, it was just really cool. Uh, are you still doing that? Like, are you
Yeah.
still making your own stuff? How do you?
Sometimes now the midwifery has take up a lot of space,
Mhm,
so now I just make things to order, because I just don't have I didn't have the time. On call all the time. I didn't have time to make the products and advertise, sell, and everything. Being a small business
mhm,
owner, it was just a lot. So right now I'm redoing my inventory, thinking about what I should sell, what I should take away, what I should focus on.
mhm,
Maybe I should focus on my niche, which is women's health, hormones and things, or what should I add to that? So that's been in the works,
mhm.
but I do still make some for me, my family, and returning clients who like, look, we don't care we don't care if you gotta wait. We want your products. So
Yeah,
that's pretty much who I'm making it for. But I still do it.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
I still got
What?
my collection.
It is a lot of work, though. I mean,
Yeah,
a lot of grinding and putting, I don't know, putting them in the
make
little pill forms
oh
or
my
whatever.
gosh,
Like,
take
it's,
hours. Just
yeah.
I mean, it would take hours, and that's a lot of time. I would be here until
I
midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning some
Well,
nights.
there's sometimes when my doorbell out there, like my Ring doorbell that I have at the center, it would go off. I'm like, who the heck's it's and then I was like, oh, it's just Cheryl. Like it's
Yeah,
just Cheryl. It's 3:30. We're
it's
fine.
3:30 in the morning, no problem. And
Yeah.
then I'm going to prenatal visits in the morning, so it was like it
Yeah.
was exhausting.
I think there was one time that I asked you if you were staying the night here. I think I
Yeah,
texted you
you
and asked
did.
you. I was like, "Hey, are you staying the night at the center or sleeping at the center?" Because you were like, "No, no, I just got there
It's
late, left early. I don't know, whatever." But that
Yeah,
is a
it
lot.
was tough. I was working a lot during the day with pregnant moms, and I come here because I was doing home visits, and I come here at night to make products,
Mhm.
and I'd be leaving in the morning, like 3 o'clock in the morning. I would try to like at some point I was like, okay, 3 a.m. has got to be the cutoff, because
Right.
at least I could be like, oh, okay, I can get at least like 4 or 5 hours of sleep, maybe. But yeah, it
Wow.
was rough. It was rough.
That is.
Yeah.
Do you with the herbs and stuff, is there do you know of or make things or can suggest anything for people with like anxiety or having trouble sleeping and stuff like that?
Yeah. I think for me too, people have to come in with the mindset that this is gonna work for them,
Mhm.
because a lot of it's mental. So if you come in and you're like, I've never done herbs before. I don't know if this is gonna work. I've been taking, maybe prescribe something, and you're like, well, I've been taking this, and I want to kind of play around with the herbs. I really encourage them to do more research and to actually, like, if this is what you want to do, you have to be dedicated to it, because
Yeah.
this quote from, it was what where is he from? Philippines or something like that,
Mm.
where they're usually doing herbal medicine before pharmaceutical, because that's what they have access to the most. And he was a farmer, and he said that um he was taking this herb for 2 years, and then it started to work well.
Huh.
And if I were to tell somebody, well, if you were to take this herb for anxiety, it's gonna be about 2 years.
Yeah,
And they're
they'll be
like,
like,
what? Two
"Ah."
years? But the problem with that is, like, it's not a quick fix. This is healing it. It's supposed to be healing. It's not
Mhm.
supposed to be a here you go kind of thing and keep you doped up. It's supposed to, regulate your nervous system
Yeah.
versus giving your nervous system a quick fix. So
Mhm.
for him, that 2 years wasn't just he needed to take this medicine. And it's actually not for anxiety, it was for energy. He
Mhm.
was taking it for energy, and he was an older man. And so for him, it was building up hormones, all these things that was contributing to low energy.
Mhm.
And now he's feeling good. He's on this herb. He doesn't have to stay on this herb for life. He's fixing the problem, the root of
Um,
the issue, versus just taking an energy drink or something like that, getting that quick fix and then crashing. So herbs, you have to be patient. You have to want to do the journey, um,
yeah.
or it won't work. because you'll give up. If you don't see
Mhm.
the vision, you'll give up. And I think for people, we ruin our bodies like 10 years. It took us 10 years to ruin our bodies or something.
Mhm.
So we want it to heal our bodies in like 2 months. 10
Right.
years of damage, but we
Mhm.
want like a 2 month max fix.
Yeah.
That's unreasonable for our bodies, first off. And secondly, like, where is that heard of? Even pharmaceutical medicine won't heal you in 2 months. It
Mhm.
will take away those symptoms. It may add on a symptom and then take away another symptom. So you're in a constant cycle
Right.
of just inflammation and pain or whatever it is versus investing in your health and taking that herb or those herbs and taking time to heal,
Right.
fixing the root of the issue.
Well, and like with medicine, like not herbs, it is really crazy like talking about the symptoms, just like how you take one thing for something and it kind of dulls that out, but then 6 months later you start with another symptom of something. You're like, ah, this kind of sucks. Have something else going on. Then you go to a doctor and they put you on something else, and then it's like you start stacking medicines, and before you know it, you're using the medicines to cross out the symptom or the side effects from the other medicine, and it's like I know people, especially with mental illness or like depression or something like that, or having trouble sleeping. I've seen someone personal, like close to me, that went through that, and it's just like I'm like, you're on like 6 different medicines now because
Mm-hmm.
your sleeping medicine was making your legs fidget or something. So then you started taking this, but that makes you hyperactive, and it was just like I don't know, a lot of different stuff. And I do think, and I say this all the time, I think that if you're like going through a situation where you're just stacked with anxiety and it's like you can't function, go to the doctors. Let's get on some anxiety medicine and get you to a good base where you can handle everything. But then let's like take those steps forward to change everything so you don't have to be on that medicine
Mm-hmm.
your whole life or whatever. And I mean, for me, I'm big with like, let's meditate, let's do some breathing, let's go for a walk out in nature, let's do some
Yeah.
exercise. And I'm like, let's take our happy pills, which I look at as like going for a ride in the car with your windows down, listening to music, or if
Mm-hmm.
it's cold, windows up, whatever. But it just like doing those things that make you happy, but not chasing it, but just emptying your cup basically.
Yeah.
And last thing I'll say about that, I had this somatic breathwork person that was on here, and she was talking about our capacity, and she was just saying like how we have everyone has this capacity within us, and when that capacity gets full with all the junk going on in our lives, then we're ready to burst basically. But we can do things to raise that capacity and open that capacity, such as breath work or meditation or things like a hobby of some sort that takes away some of the stuff. But ultimately, we want to get to a place where we're good. So I think that
Mm-hmm.
medicine can play a good role in all of that. And then if you wanted to, as long as it would be okay to interact the two, add an herb or something that does help after a few years or something like there, or a few months, and just start taking that to help get your body regulated. So later on, when you do try to come off of the medicine, it isn't a big shock, basically.
Yeah. I compare it to where if you're investing money, you're putting money into a savings or investing it to let it accumulate over time
Hmm.
versus if you get bills due and I mean like it's an emergency, your car is gonna get towed, or you may get evicted, so you need like a quick $1,000 or something to hurry up and take care. Like, go ahead and get that lump sum of money
Hmm.
and take care of what you need to take care of because it's an emergency. That's what I think of pharmaceutical medicine. Like if it's an emergency, a quick fix, fine. Take care of that so you're not facing any severe issues.
Right.
With herbalism, if you got the time, nothing's happening, like you just there's a problem, but it's not severely affecting you to a point where, it becomes deadly or whatever.
Hmm.
Then you can slowly start the healing process. heal from the root, and then you don't have to worry about at the end of this, something severe happening because you never fix the problem.
Right.
So, I'm not mad at people who use pharmaceutical medicine in the ways of a quick, like, let me get this down. So
Hmm.
then I can now pursue herbal medicine. But don't get hooked on it. Don't get hooked
Right.
on the idea of quick fixes. Let it happen when it needs to happen. But then sit down with yourself and start investing in your health where it's, okay, I realize I have this problem. Let me go ahead and start the root and healing.
Right. I agree.
And I don't actually, this is the first time I said this out loud, but like, herbalism, herbs are the blueprint. They're not alternative. They're the blueprint. There's
Hmm.
so many pharmaceutical medicines that take extractions from medicinal plants and they put them in the medicine. So herbs have always been the blueprint and herbs have always worked. It's just the mindset that people have now that they don't work. They're not going to work like pharmaceutical medicine,
Hmm.
but they'll work. You just have to invest the time and be patient with them. Um, just like you trust and invest in pharmaceutical medicine that are using the blueprint from herbs. Um, like for example, white willow bark, aspirin. It's they take the extraction from the white willow bark
Hmm.
and use it in aspirin. But for me, I just go to the root. I go to the blueprint. So white willow bark, I put those in tinctures or in capsules, and you just take it every so often, and then you'll start to realize it's not just taking away the inflammation and that pain. It's actually going to the root, trying to
Hmm.
kill the inflammation. So, do you want the inflammation to go away forever? Do you just want it to go away real quick? And that's the difference.
I love that, and I think like we are part of this earth, and we can take the things from this earth, and because it's there for us,
Mm-hmm.
and I fully believe that everything is there, and anything that we need for our bodies or for any kind of cure for anything, I think exists here on this earth. And it's really crazy to think of like the people that, no matter if they were like listening to their intuition or trial and error, or however we believe it happened, but like
Mm-hmm.
they're testing these plants, or just knowing that these, like they're being led to these plants, knowing that if I eat this, it's going to help me, or if I crush it up and do whatever it and put it in some tea or something, it's going to help me with this. And it's just so crazy that there's so much information on all these different plants of what they can do for us,
Yeah.
because that takes a lot of work and a lot of stuff. And I wanted to actually say as well with the mind, because you said about the mind state a couple of times, and I agree with that a lot, because I think that our mind, like if our minds are like, I'll take this herb and kind of see what happens, but it's not going to be as good as my other stuff I take or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you're not opening up your energy, opening up your body, and getting in a receptive mode of being able to benefit from that. And I think that when you can get in a good mind state and say, I'm going to take this and I'm going to open up my body, my energy, and allow it to get what it needs from this, I think that does make a huge difference. And even
Yeah.
like in my energy healing that I do, it's like you need to be open to it. You need to open your energy and be receptive to it and not clammed up. And if our bodies are clammed up, we're not going to accept the herbs or whatever that we're taking. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if what would you say, like if there's one herb out there that's like the super herb, do you have one?
I don't because I think there's a super herb for every part of the
Mm.
body.
I always hear a lot about dandelions, like, or like
And dandelion is
dandelions.
great. It's easy because it grows in your backyard. You could go
Mm-hmm.
pull it, and you could do and it's one of those where you don't need to be under any supervision or anything. Like
Right.
it has lots of different uses. You could utilize the flower, the root, um, and it's a great herb. You can
Mm-hmm.
utilize the leaf part of the plant, like great herb overall. You can pretty much use the entire plant.
Mhm.
Um, and like I said, it has so many different benefits, not invasive or anything. So, it's a great herb.
I tried dandelion tea one time and it was so disgusting, but I told my friend that and she was like, "Ah, you gotta put like some honey in it and like do this." And I'm like, maybe I'll try it again,
And
but
it depends on too, like how you're steeping it. Sometimes people steep it too long, you can get that bitter taste.
mm,
If you don't steep it, if you steep it, but you're not steeping it for a long time, it may give you a lighter taste. Um, if you're doing the tea versus, I mean, if you're doing the root versus the root's gonna
mm,
have more of a bitter taste than the leaf is. So it just depends on what part of the plant um that you're using.
right. I think this one was more of a bitter kind of taste,
It's
but it
probably the
was like a
root.
tea that I got off of Amazon or something.
Yeah.
So it's probably just a half-assed tea, but who knows if it was even really dandelion.
Yeah.
It was probably something else, but
But I mean, it's a good. I wish I had an answer for that, but I would encourage because when I first got into herbalism, I had this book, and the book had a picture of a body, and it had an herb for every part of that body.
oh, that's
So
cool.
when I teach my herbal classes, I always teach people, well, have your materia medica, which is like a book or just a list of herbs for different parts of the body, different ailments, and you don't have to memorize 20 different herbs. If you had an herb just for respiratory, digestion, immunity, um, or hair and skin, different parts of your body
Mhm.
that you can target, and you had an herb that was strong, a strong herb for every part of those functions in your body, you're fine. Like hawthorn, berry and leaf, great for your heart.
Mm.
Hibiscus, also like great for heart health, circulation. Um, so if you just had that for that particular reason, and a lot of herbs have multiple uses.
Mhm.
So you may have a herb that, like hibiscus, circulation, heart health, blood pressure, cholesterol, like so many different things that it does.
Yeah.
Um, digestion. Like you drink a lot of hibiscus, you're gonna want to go to the bathroom. Like it's there's multiple uses for herbs. So if you study, like if you got 5 different herbs and you study those 5 herbs to the fullest, that may be all you need.
That's true.
I think herbs are powerful in general when they're used to their whole capacity.
Mhm.
Like if I'm studying an herb, I'm looking at the flower, the berry. If it produces fruit, I'm looking at the fruit. I'm looking at the roots, studying that herb to its fullest. Is it toxic? What part of it is toxic? Like just
It's a
looking
good
at
part to
that.
know.
Yes, super
Yes.
good part to know.
Yeah.
Um, and just trying to figure out what that herb does as a whole, so I know how to use it, how to utilize it, and all I can utilize it for. Because then
Mhm.
you get overwhelmed. You got 20 different herbs you're trying to learn, and you realize these 20 different herbs have like at least 10 different uses each. So then you're
Mhm.
like trying to figure out, like, okay, well, I remember like dandelion was good for immunity, but it was also good, like a good this and that. It's like just learn 5 herbs.
Yeah.
Start with that, and then make your way up. That's what I did.
Well, that's a good way to look at it because I feel like it can be super overwhelming if you try to like take it all on at once. But if you
Yeah.
just pick five and then you just kind of add on to that, I think it would be
Mm-hmm.
much more doable.
Yeah.
Do you? My wife, she was on birth control for a long time, and then she went off of it, and it like now she has the worst like menstrual cycles ever. Do you have any herbs that would help for that with that at all?
Yeah. So I would recommend her do red raspberry leaf, um, chasteberry, also called vitex berry. Those are two, I call them the women's herbs. They really
Okay.
just help rebalance, rebalance everything. And depending on, because women's bodies are so complex, depending on, some women may have different syndromes within their cycles. It could be endometriosis,
Mm-hmm.
PCOS, things like that. So trying to really narrow down what the root cause of the painful menstrual cycles or the terrible menstrual cycles, and go on from there. So I may recommend a blend where we have herbs that help with the hormonal balance and then also those cramps.
Mhm.
the painful part. So we're adding cramp bark, maybe some white willow bark,
She gets a really bad headache, like
and that's really
a week, or not a week, like a day before, and then like maybe a day or two before, and then the day of, she'll just be like debilitated with a headache for a day or two.
so I would recommend her definitely do like even ashwagandha, doing those maybe a week before a cycle comes because that headache's probably the estrogen drop. Like we
Mhm.
go through an estrogen drop when we before we start a cycle, and it can cause headaches, migraines, stuff like that.
She's desperate at this point. She's been to the doctors for, and she's had like it was for headaches and I think like hair loss, but that happened like after the our second was born, like a year
Mm,
after. And but after reading, we were like it can linger like that long, and then all of a sudden you go through the hair loss. But now it's growing back. But she got all these tests done, like blood tests, to see what her levels were with everything, and everything came back perfect. And then now we're at a place where the doctors are like, you're just gonna have to suffer for with a headache. Here's They gave her some medicine for it, and when she takes the medicine, she feels like her arms are heavy and numb, and like her chest is heavy, and she has to sleep for 2 hours. And it's like, that's not a good medicine, even though it
no.
helps the headache. So that's why I figured I would ask, because I thought about it. So
Yeah,
I'll have to.
I'll definitely recommend a blend for her after this because, like I said, women's bodies are complex. Everybody's different, but it sounds like it's an estrogen drop
Mhm.
when that cycle comes in. So it's good to prepare by drinking tea or it doesn't have to be like a tea. Like you could make like a cocktail out of it, um, and just kind of drink that a week beforehand. And I've seen a difference because I used to have those headaches. This is why I'm very familiar.
Okay.
I used to go through that as well, and I found out what it was. So taking herbs to be able to reverse that.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah,
and that's what I told her. I was like, something is dropping in your body, or
yeah,
something is fluctuating that's causing the headache. We just have to find out what that is that's dropping or fluctuating. So, I mean, it'll be definitely worth a shot to see if anything can help her. But
yeah, for
yeah.
sure. And that's why for me, when someone's asking like, "Hey, can I have I have this going on. Can I get this product?" I don't give them a product because I need to know for sure that this is what's happening. Because a lot of times we think you go on Google, you try to figure out what's happening, and it's usually never the case.
Right.
So like when someone's like, "Hey, like I'm having really painful cycles or like my cycles are awful. Do you have anything for it?" Or I have PCOS. Do you have anything for this? I'm like, well, let's talk. Let's have a consultation first because it could be an underlying. There's so many underlying issues
Yeah.
as to why you're having those different symptoms happening.
Mhm.
So
That makes sense.
yeah,
Well, that's interesting. Um, are you doing anything with like teaching herbalism anymore still?
yeah. So I'm gonna be in the spring, starting spring. I will be launching more herbal classes. Not that I have like that time. Like before I
I know.
was doing herbal classes, I had to cancel them for a birth. It was a mess.
Yeah,
But now I'm able to 'cause I do my childbirth education classes. I do a home birth education class and a standard childbirth education class, but now I'm going back into herbal classes because it's been just a lot of requests.
mhm,
And I realized I didn't really get to truly do them last year. So bringing them back this year. I'm starting off with the herbal 101, like a herbalism for beginners type of thing.
mhm.
Because I know a lot of people in this area just want to at least have a start in
They
knowing.
do.
And then I'm doing seasonal herbal class where herbs for the spring, herbs for the summer, winter type of thing.
That'd be
Um,
cool.
yeah, so
You ever
definitely
think
getting back
about,
up.
you may already do this, but think about like doing one of like teaching people the herbs that are like right in front of them that they can use, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, and I try to incorporate that in the
I
beginners class.
figured.
I do, but it's just such it can be its own class just because that's more so on like the foraging
Mhm.
part where learning how to forage, learning like how to identify plants, learning how to not only identify what the plant is, what it does, where they grow. So if it's in your backyard, where do you live? Do you live near a lake, river? Do you live near water? Do you live near are you just in a grassy area, rural area? Where do you live? Because that can contribute to why this herb is in your backyard
Right.
versus somebody else's backyard. So
Mhm.
it's its whole own
I
class,
feel like there
but
should be an app for that at this
there
point.
is there is
That's what I
apps.
was gonna
Yeah,
say.
there's apps, there's books. There's a lot. Like I have an app called Plant ID.
I have
So
the same one.
yeah, so if I'm
Yes.
like, well, I've never seen this plant, or there's some plants that look exactly alike. So I've had to learn
Mm,
to like even look at leaves to like see like this. They're both growing red berries. The berries look exactly the same, but like how is the leaves growing? Like
mhm.
trying to figure out how to truly identify them. So that plant identifier helps because I can be like, okay, this is different than what I know. So now let me go ahead and study this plant
Right.
to see what makes it different from this one.
Mhm.
Because one berry tree could be non-poisonous and toxic versus the other one being safe to eat.
Well, that's actually why I downloaded the app because my dog ate some berries off of this thing that we
Oh,
have in the backyard.
yikes.
I was like, "What is this?" And they're like, "Oh, it's this." And then I go to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is blah blah blah, poisonous to dogs, and it's like it's highly poison. I was like, "Oh God, my dog's gonna die now." And I call the vet, and they're like, "All right, look, Google's a little bit insane with this. It
Hmm.
is toxic, but your dog's gonna be just fine." I'm like, "Oh." I actually called the hotline, like a $95 fee just to
Oh my
ask them one
gosh.
question, and
Mm.
it's kind of crazy, but had to make sure the dog was all right. So
Yeah, I
it
get
was
that.
right.
I do get that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
is there anything that you want to say or talk about before we get going and I ask you to tell people how to get a hold of you?
Okay, yeah. I do want to say that I am going to start offering a specific service
Mhm.
in my practice. It's a scan. It's more like a frequency scan where it actually scans you and it identifies all of the different like allergies that you may have. It can identify if you have any parasites. It can identify if you have any viruses. Maybe still within you can identify hormonal issues, which is really big for me in my practice too, because I work with men and women who have hormonal imbalances, and it could also identify if you're fertile and
Oh, wow, that's cool.
how to help with that. So it's a really good tool, and like I said, it's going to be essential for the practice. But also those who are coming for parasite cleanses, we can see how to tackle those and
Mhm.
what's going on with you. If you're eating things and you're not sure why you're having inflammation from eating it, oh, okay, you have an allergy. So
Right.
that is a service I'm going to be offering
So I
in the
talked to
spring.
someone with one of those. Is it a machine that, or like a
Mm-mm.
scanner kind of thing? Is this the one that can like tell you if you're more prone to a certain type of cancer or something like that? Do you
Not
know?
really. Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, not
The
that
one
one.
she had, she was like, "Oh, it can do that and that." But I think it's really crazy because there's been a lot of people that's like, "I know this stuff is wrong with me. I know this is imbalanced," and they do that, and it like comes up with all of it. And I've heard from a lot of people that that is pretty accurate, pretty darn accurate.
It
So,
really is. It's
yeah.
scary accurate. But it's not used to diagnose anyone. It's not used to, be in place of medical, advice. But as as it is, it can help if you see that you're allergic to something, or you see that you may have all these parasites or a virus. You
Mhm.
can tackle it, and see what happens afterwards. Like if you get scanned again, or like for instance, if you were allergic to certain kind of nuts,
Mhm.
and or but you were eating things with those nuts in it, and the allergy might not have an effect on you immediately, but it may have an effect over you over time.
Mm.
So if you stop dealing with certain types of inflammation because you stop eating these foods, then that's a way that you can use that scan to your benefit.
Yeah. I heard my son was allergic to dairy and then he was allergic. He is, or I don't think he is anymore. I don't think he ever was, honestly, allergic to peanuts. But he never actually ate peanuts. He had an allergic reaction, anaphylactic reaction to dairy when he was younger, like
Mm.
6, 7 months old. Um, and then they did the test on him and it came up for peanuts. And then long story there, but basically years later, we ended up getting his blood taken and his numbers went way down for the peanuts. And the doctor's like, I wouldn't even consider him allergic with these numbers. But then we went to the allergist and they did the skin prick test on his back. And the number there was way bigger than it was before. And they're like, well, the skin test is where it's at versus blood tests. And then we had to do all this research. And what we came up with is like he could be allergic. There's something with that test that like a I don't know, an element to whatever they're putting in him, that sometimes people can be allergic to that and not actually allergic to the peanuts because the
Mhm.
peanut doesn't have that property in it. And so we took him for a peanut challenge and he ate the peanuts and he was very stressed out and scared, so he worked his body really ragged where he started
Mhm.
feeling like passy-outy if he stood up and was like he was just really drained basically. But the doctor um, that was there was like, there was no allergic reaction. Like none of this is due to the peanuts. This is all simply his mental, physical drain that's happening. He's been here for 4 or 5 hours now, and like all
Mhm.
that. But I guess I forget where I'm even going with this at this point. Oh yeah, a machine like that though, if it could like tell him like if he's allergic to peanuts or if it's something else that he's allergic to, that maybe that skin prick test was telling him, whatever. But it would be cool to see it on something like that.
Yeah, because it doesn't necessarily touch your skin as like a frequency scan, so
Oh, that's cool.
nothing's affecting the results. But also, sometimes those tests will trigger if it's like a severe allergy. But the scan will say, well, it's not severe, but if you do take it, it can cause some issues. It could you have
Yeah.
a moderate you may have a moderate allergic reaction where it's not life threatening,
Mm-hmm.
but it may cause, like I said, inflammation or something weird. And with allergies, based off your immunity, your
Mm-hmm.
allergies can change. So if you if you get older, you may find yourself getting more sensitive to certain foods or an allergic reaction to certain foods that you used to always eat, and that could just be your immunity or your body changing.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be it too, because you don't have to be an elderly person for that to happen. You could just, let's
Right.
say, as you get older, your body grows new food sensitivities, your environment. Um, so
Well, and I remember what I was, the true reason I brought that up is that he used to be allergic to dairy, and then now he's considered not allergic because he tested out of that and he's not allergic anymore. But my thought with that is like, if you're allergic at some point, I would imagine like your body is going to be reacting it to some.
in some form.
Yeah, and that's why dairy a lot of times does cause inflammation in people's bodies and stuff because they have an allergic reaction or they're
Yeah.
having an allergic reaction to it. It's just they're not severely allergic, so
Like
they
their
don't even
throat's not closing up or
realize,
something.
right?
So yeah, and so yeah, that scan would might identify whether or not if he might still have some type of allergy to it,
Mhm.
but it may not be like a severe one.
Right.
He may test like a six, on it versus like it's like 1 through 9. He may test like a
Mm.
six, and sometimes those other tests get to be an 8 or 9 for it to really come up.
Gotcha. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's really cool that you're offering that. I think that'll, I mean, honestly, that'll just help a ton with
Mm-hmm.
any practice that you have, but I
Yeah.
mean, especially for yours. Well, that's cool. And where, I guess we can move into this part. Where are you located at with uh, that machine or the frequency scan and all that?
So I don't have a specific location right now.
Okay.
And I'm still working out the details on, building the practice and everything.
Mhm.
But I will be launching it probably within the next couple months.
Nice.
Everything. Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. Well, is there a place that people can get a hold of you, like a website,
Hmm.
anything like that?
Yeah. So they can visit me on my website. It's theherbalcompass.com. And on that website, you'll find information about my midwifery services, doula services. Um, I have a postpartum meal prep service that I'm doing,
That's
and
awesome.
yeah, and it's needed too. And the herbalism on there. So
Mm.
it's the business is called the Herbal Compass Birth and Wellness Collective, because it's a collective of my birth services and the holistic stuff. And I'm slowly separating my childbirth education aspect away from the site, um, and making its own entity since it's getting a lot bigger now. And it's that in itself is called Rooted Beginnings Childbirth Education. So soon people will be able to visit my Rooted Beginnings Childbirth Education website and take online classes. They can schedule for in-person classes. They can find resources, articles, things that will help them just, prepare for birth and postpartum.
That's needed. It really is just
Yeah.
to have that there. I mean, I'm sure they can go other places and research or whatever, but like to have just all that in one place, it's nice to have
Yeah.
and mapped out for you on like, here's what you need for this, or like this is, I don't know, this is childbirth, this is like postpartum, this is
Yeah.
whatever. So
And it will be, organized for whatever phase in your pregnancy or whatever phase postpartum you're in. If you're having questions or you just need resources or you're just like, I don't know what this vaccine or what this medicine does. And
mhm.
to have some information broken down. And also have, there's also websites that do the same, like evidence-based birth. There's so many different resources people can go to that they don't know. So I'm hoping to have a at least a library of things that people can look at and
All
view
right.
for their own knowledge.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I love what you're doing, and I think that
Yeah.
it's the world needs it. So I
Hmm. I
appreciate you, and
agree.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you coming on here and chatting. And until next time,
Yes, thank you for having me, Josh.
you're very
It's good
welcome.
seeing you again.
Same to you.
Like,
I want to thank you for watching the podcast. It truly means a lot to me that you're taking the time to watch this video. And if there's anything that you have learned or anything that you got from this video, I would truly appreciate it if you could like, subscribe, follow, and give it a share. It takes just a couple of minutes and it makes a huge difference for me. I appreciate you watching, and I will continue to make videos. And until next time.